The sky above Elarusix burned red. The outpost alarms screamed through the cold evening air. Soldiers ran in all directions, shouting orders, grabbing weapons, pulling on armor. Out. Dust swirled around their boots. The walls of the outpost shook as a low rumble echoed from above. Something massive was coming. Lieutenant Bren Hart stood frozen at the control deck, eyes locked on the holographic screen in front of him. His throat went dry. 500 ships, he whispered. They're all Varnak. The technician beside him dropped his tablet. 500? That's impossible. We only have 40 soldiers. Bren didn't answer. The numbers were real. The fleet was real. The Varnak swarm was here. The outpost on Elarusix wasn't supposed to be important. It was a small fuel depot, a cum station, and a last refueling point between the Outer Rim and the human core worlds. It had weak defenses, a skeleton crew, and barely enough supplies to last a month.
Oh.
No one expected it to be attacked until... Now, a new voice came through the speaker system. This is Commander Rios. All units prepare for ground assault. We have incoming drop pods. I repeat, Varnak drop pods inbound. Everyone to battle positions. We hold the line. Bren snapped into action. Move. Let's go. We hold until the last man. Soldiers scrambled toward the outer trenches, setting up railguns, auto turrets, and whatever explosives they had left. Some of them were fresh out of training. Others were old veterans stationed here as a quiet assignment. No one was ready for this. The Varnak came fast. Black pods slammed into the soil outside the walls like thunderbolts. They opened like metal flowers, revealing tall, armor-clad insectoids with glowing red eyes and plasma spears. The ground war had begun. Inside the command center, chaos exploded. Commander Rio screamed orders until a direct blast tore through the bunker roof and crushed him under debris. Officers panicked. The chain of command broke. Everyone began yelling at once, till a soft voice cut through the noise. I'll take command. They turned. Captain Lira Vale stepped forward. She wasn't tall or loud. Her face was calm, her hair tied back, her armor clean. She looked ordinary. But what made every soldier freeze was the expression on her face. She was smiling. It wasn't a smile of madness. It wasn't fear or pride or anger. It was something else, like she knew. A secret no one else did. Like she'd seen what was coming and wasn't afraid. Bren frowned. Captain Vale. You're intel, right? You're not even combat division. Lira nodded once. That's true. But I know how to beat them. Someone laughed in disbelief. 500 enemies? Are you out of your mind? No, she said. I've been preparing for this. All of it. This outpost, this timing, even the layout of the walls, it's part of the design. No one understood. No. But no one else had a better plan, so they gave her the cums. Lira moved like she had trained for this moment her entire life. She shut down half the base's power grid and rerouted energy into the north defense wall. She moved all railgun units into strange positions, stacked crates in odd patterns, and flooded one entire corridor with coolant. The other officers thought she was losing it, but then first wave came. Hundreds of Varnak charged toward the main gate only to fall into a line of traps hidden in the sand. Explosives went off in perfect rhythm. Railguns fired at angles no one had thought to try. The alien formation broke. Screams filled the air. The humans had survived the first attack. People looked at Lira differently now. They didn't understand how she'd done it, but they didn't question her again. Later that night, the outpost grew quiet. Fires burned on the horizon. Bodies, human and alien, lay scattered beyond the gates. Everyone waited for the next wave. Lira stood alone on the western tower, looking out over the dark plains. Bren climbed up beside her. How did you know? She didn't look at him. 'Cause I've been here before. Bren blinked. What? Lira finally turned, not physically, but in simulations. I see things before they happen. Patterns, probabilities. That's how my mind works. He didn't know what to say. That's impossible. She smiled again. That same strange, calm smile. I know what they'll try next. They'll hit our weak side south tunnel entrance. But it won't be weak when they arrive. Bren swallowed hard. You think we can win this? We won't survive it by force, she said. But we can outsmart them. We have exactly 12 hours before their command ship fires its core cannon. In that time, I need you to help me rewire the base. To what? To become a weapon. At 0200 hours, the Varnak sent a new wave. It was stronger, smarter. They targeted the power lines, the turrets, the command deck. But everything they expected was gone. The traps had moved. The humans were never where they should be. And the defenses, somehow, were always one step ahead. Lira's voice on the comms was calm, steady. Team 3, shift west by 20 meters. Drop decoys on my mark. Now. Boom. Another dozen aliens down. She had turned the outpost into a living maze. Soldiers fought with new courage because they trusted her. She didn't panic. She didn't doubt. She simply smiled. And somehow, that was enough. By dawn, the enemy had lost 60% of its ground force. The remaining Varnak retreated into the desert to regroup inside the outpost. Bren stood over a map, his eyes wide. This shouldn't be working, Lira stepped in. Her armor was scratched, her hands dirty, but her eyes still burned with focus. Bren turned to her. Who are you, really? Lira looked at him, quiet for a moment. I'm not a hero, she said. I'm just someone who planned for the worst day and hoped it would never come. He didn't press, not yet. She walked to the window where the rising sun painted. The sky in orange and gold, the Varnak would come again, stronger, smarter. But Lira Vale would be ready, and she'd still be smiling. The sky over Elarusix was quiet, but no one believed the silence would last in the dusty trenches outside the human outpost. Soldiers repaired broken walls and reloaded their rifles with shaky hands. The night had been brutal. Burned metal, scorched. Earth and alien bodies surrounded them. The smell of plasma and blood hung heavy in the air inside the command center. Voices whispered in tight corners. She smiled through the entire attack. I saw her walk into the gunfire. She's not normal. No one fights like that. But none of them said it to her face. Captain Lira Vale stood in front of the central war table, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the blinking red lights of enemy positions. Her body was still. Her voice was calm. And yes, she was still smiling. 4 hours earlier, ... It was supposed to be just another patrol. 3 soldiers had been sent down into the lower bunker to check for breaches. The power grid flickered, and strange static had been detected in the tunnels. Nothing big, it's just routine. But when they reached corridor C7, the walls exploded. A black mass of bioarmor and red eyes slammed through the wall like a hammer. A Varnak stalker, twice the height of a man, crashed into the first soldier before he could scream. Blood splattered across the floor. The second soldier fired wildly, hitting the ceiling. The third dropped his gun and froze. That's when Lira arrived. She didn't run. She didn't shout. She simply walked into the tunnel, her boots echoing against the metal floor. Her rifle hung loosely in her hands. The Varnak turned toward her, and she smiled. The alien roared, slamming one claw into the wall. Sparks flew, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she whispered something, right foot, then left. You always charge the same way. The beast lunged. She fired 3 shots in rapid bursts, not at its chest, not at its head. She hit the weak joint. Between its left arm and shoulder once, twice, then the spine just below the neck. The Varnak fell mid-charge. Sliding across the floor at her feet, she stepped over the body. The 2 surviving soldiers stared at her like she was a ghost. Get back to the surface, she said. Now. They didn't argue. Back in the war room, Brenhart watched her work. He couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. She walked toward it like she knew exactly what it would do. He looked down at the tablet showing personnel files. Her combat training was basic. No medals, no field honors. She wasn't even supposed to be in command. Then why was she always right? Sir, a technician called out. Long-range sensors are back online. Bren walked over. What do we have? The screen lit up 5 new clusters of Varnak troops, hundreds of life forms. But that wasn't the worst part. Underground tunneling detected, the text said. They're digging under the outpost. Fast minutes later, Lira called a full meeting. We've got maybe 1 hour before they're beneath us, she said. They'll come from below, where our sensors are weakest. The officers looked at the map. The tunnels led directly to the power core. If they take out the core, we lose shields, turrets, and the last comes beacon. Lira nodded. That's why we let them. Everyone stared at her. What? Bren said. She pointed to a section of the core chamber. We shut down this area and make it look empty. Let them come up. Then we collapse the floor using coolant tanks and thermal charges. It'll trap them in a frozen tomb. That's suicide. It's math, she said. They'll send their best warriors underground. If we kill them here, their front line weakens. It's the only chance we have. Her voice never rose. Her hands never shook. That smile stayed on her face, and that was the part that scared them most. The trap was set. Coolant lines were overpressurized. Explosives were placed beneath. The reinforced steel. Half the soldiers evacuated the lower deck. The rest stayed hidden in vents and emergency hatches, waiting for the enemy to rise. At exactly 0600, the floor cracked. Long clawed fingers burst through. Varnak diggers erupted from the ground, roaring with hunger. One by one, they climbed into the room. 40, 60, over 100. Then they paused. Something was wrong. The room was too empty. Too quiet. That's when the trap went off. White mist exploded from the tanks. The temperature dropped so fast that the aliens' armor cracked. Their roars turned to shrieks. They tried to dive back into the hole, but it was already gone. The floor beneath them collapsed, sending them down into a frozen pit laced with fire. Boom. The walls shook. The lights flickered. When the smoke cleared, Lira walked down into the chamber. Weapon at her side. She looked over the pit, saw the alien. Bodies frozen mid-climb, and she smiled. Hours later, soldiers gathered around the fire pit behind the command station. No one joked. No one laughed. They just watched the horizon, waiting for the next wave. Bren sat beside Lira, handing her a ration bar. You didn't even blink today. She shrugged. I blinked. You just didn't see it. He paused, then said quietly, You could have. Died, I know. You weren't scared. Her answer was soft. I was terrified. But I've seen this before. Not in dreams. In tests. In simulations. Bren turned to her. What do you mean? I was part of a classified project. Long ago, they tested people who could think in patterns, predict future events. Not magic, not prophecy. Just fast minds. She looked up at the stars. But I was the only one who survived the implant. Bryn said nothing for a while. Then finally, Why do you smile? She turned to him, her face lit by the firelight. Because I already know how this ends. Far. Above them, in the orbit of Elarusix, massive Varnak dreadnought waited in silence. Inside, a tall creature with silver skin and many eyes watched the battle below through a red lens. It saw the traps, the failure, the strange movements of the humans, tactical shifts. It narrowed its gaze. There's a mind down there, it said in a cold, echoing voice. A human with an impossible pattern. Find her, I want her alive. The outpost's medbay was quiet. The battle was over for now. Broken walls were patched. Wounded soldiers lay on steel beds with bandages across their arms and burns on their faces. Everyone was exhausted, but no one rested easy. They knew the Varnak would return. Lieutenant Brenhart sat alone at a flickering screen in the corner of the command deck. He had a name typed into a restricted search window. Captain Lira Vale. The database hesitated, and a warning popped up. Classified. Eyes only level black access or Rikuai, Erdbrin's brow furrowed. Lira had never said much about her past. No family, no records, no photos. Just a few service logs and a transfer file with half the data missing. It didn't make sense. He leaned closer, and started bypassing the firewall. He had been in intel once before, L6. He knew how to dig, and he knew when something didn't smell right. After 2 minutes of silent work, the screen blinked once and opened. What he found chilled him. Project Revenant. File 07 subject. Lira Vale status. Terminated. Classification. Human tactical. Interface experiment Bryn blinked. Terminated. He scrolled down. Summary. Lira Vale, formerly subject LV-07, was part of a high-risk military test. The goal was to create soldiers who could think faster than AI, predict battlefield movements, and calculate millions of possibilities in seconds. Not with computers, but with their own minds. To do this, scientists installed a living neural implant called a memory thread into the test subjects. It connected past memories to probability simulations, allowing them to see short-term futures. Based on real-time variables, out of 12 subjects, 11 died. The project was shut down, all data deleted, all files erased, except Lira. Bren leaned back in his chair, stunned. She had survived something no one else could. Not only survived, but come out stronger. That's how she knew when to move, where to aim, how to set traps before the enemy acted. She wasn't guessing, she was predicting. She wasn't just trained. She was built, and the smile, it made. Since she knew what was coming, she always had. Outside, the red sun began to rise again over the hills of L6. In the shadows of the broken battlefield, bodies were being collected, human and alien alike. It was slow work and no one spoke. Lira stood alone in the armory, cleaning her rifle. Her face was calm, her movements careful, her smile faint, but presence trusted on her lips like always. Bren entered quietly and shut the door behind him. I read your file. She didn't look up. I know. You were declared dead. I was, she said. For a while. He didn't understand. She finally set the rifle down. After Project Revenant ended, I disappeared. The implant changed me. My brain works differently now. Faster, colder. I lost parts of myself. But I didn't want to become a weapon for command, so you hid. I rejoined under a false ID, took low posts, stayed quiet, never wanted to fight again. Bren stared at her. Then why are you here? She looked up, eyes meeting his. 'Cause I saw this coming. She pointed to the ground. L6, the Varnak, the Dreadnought. I dreamed it 5 years ago. Not exactly, but close. Close enough to prepare. He swallowed hard. You think you can win this? Lira didn't answer immediately. No, she said. Not like this. Not with what we have. But we can buy time. Enough time to change the outcome. Later that day, a scout team returned with new footage. A drone had been sent beyond the ridge to scan the horizon. What it recorded was terrifying. Massive digging. Machines. Bioweapons. Rolling on multiple legs. Flying drones circling high above. A full assault force was preparing to move in. The footage ended with a blurry image of a tall figure standing at the center of it, all watching the sky. Its armor gleamed silver. Its many eyes reflected red fire. It was the enemy commander. He's coming here, Brent said. Lira nodded. He knows there's something unusual on this outpost. He's hunting at you. Yes. Bren clenched his jaw. We should evacuate. Lira's head shook slowly. There's nowhere to run, and I can't leave. If he captures me alive, he'll try to connect with the implant. If he breaks in, her voice faded. What happens? She turned toward the window. Then he'll learn how humans think. How we plan, how we feel. And he'll use that to destroy the rest of the galaxy. That night, Lira walked the perimeter alone. She passed soldiers huddled together, trying to stay warm. Some of them looked up at her with quiet fear, others with quiet hope. No one really knew what to believe anymore. Only that this strange woman, who always smiled, had kept them alive. She paused beside a young engineer repairing a broken turret. Need help? She asked. The man looked up. You helping with this old junk? I fixed worse? He handed her a wrench. You know, some people say you're a machine. She tightened a bolt. And what do you say? He hesitated. And I don't care what you are. Just don't stop smiling. Every time I see that look on your face, I think we might actually live." Lira didn't answer. She just smiled. Far above them, on the Varnak dreadnought, the silver-eyed alien watched the outpost through a massive red lens. His claws tapped a rhythm on the cold floor. "Bring the beast ships forward," he ordered. "Send the crawlers. Prepare the main cannon." A soldier approached. "Do we destroy the outpost, Commander?" "No," the alien said. "Not yet. First, I want to meet her." He tapped the screen once. "Human tactical anomaly detected. Priority: capture alive." The sun had just slipped below the red mountains when the lights in the outpost flickered, then went out completely. Every corridor, every trench, every tower on Elarisix was swallowed by darkness. No alarms. No hum of machines, just silence. Then came the cold. Deep inside the outpost, Lieutenant Brenhart stared at the black screen in front of him. "We've lost the main power core," he said. "Backup generators are offline." "EMP," a soldier asked. "No," Bren said quietly. "This was planned." They turned to Lira Vale. She stood in the shadows, her calm voice steady. The Varnak didn't want to destroy the outpost. They wanted to blind it. Someone cursed under their breath. Outside, far in the distance, shapes began to move. The firelight from the wrecked tanks barely reached beyond the gates, but the soldiers could hear them scraping claws, slow footsteps, and a strange clicking sound that echoed in the air. "Crawlers," Lira said. "Silent hunters. They move through darkness. They don't use vision. They feel vibration." "How many?" Bren asked. "Too many," she said. A young gunner whispered. "How do we?" "Fight what we can't see." Lira didn't speak. Instead, she smiled. 15 minutes later, the team gathered in the lower tunnels. Lira moved through the dark like she had trained for it 100 times. "Power's down. But we still have heat sensors," she said. "And these?" She held up a pair of modified seismic boots. "They track vibration?" "Exactly." "Too hard, and the crawlers will come." She passed the boots out to the recon squad. Then she handed Bren a small transmitter. "What's this?" he asked. "Sound grenade. Delayed trigger. It mimics human footsteps just enough to draw them in." He blinked. "You want to lure them?" Her smile returned. "And trap them." The operation began in total silence. No shouting, no running, only hand signals and slow movements. Lira and her squad moved through the south tunnel, laying small traps behind every corner, shock mines, cryo wires, trip lasers. Every 30 meters they placed a sound grenade. Then they waited. The air grew colder, and then they heard it click. Dash, click, dash, click, ... The first crawler stepped into view. Its body was long and armored, shaped like a black scorpion with no eyes. It dragged a curved tail behind it and moved with the speed of a whisper. Then another, and another. Bren held his breath. The first crawler crept toward the sound grenade. 3 steps, 5 Lira clicked. Her remote. Boom. A silent pulse of energy burst through the tunnel. The shock mine detonated under the creature's belly. Its armor cracked, and its legs froze. The rest of the swarm rushed in, but every step brought them closer to another trap. One by one, they fell in the control room above. The backup screen powered on for 3 seconds. It's just enough to show the kill count tracker. Enemy units neutralized. 97. Then it shut down again. Lira stood over the last crawler, her blade humming with plasma. The creature was still alive, barely. Twitching, she crouched down, inspecting it. Bren walked up beside her. "What are you doing?" She leaned closer to the beast's head. "These aren't just scouts, they're receivers. I need to know what signal they're following." She touched the base of the creature's skull and inserted a neural probe. The screen on her wrist flickered. Data. Flowed symbols. Coordinates. A ping coming from orbit. She looked up at Bren. "They're being controlled directly." "The commander isn't just watching, he's guiding them," he frowned. "That's impossible." "No," she said. "It's dangerous." They returned to the main outpost by dawn. The lights were still dead. Fires burned in the corners. They had survived. Again, the soldiers watched as Lira walked past the wounded and the sleeping. Her hands stained, her armor scratched, but her calm face still wearing that strange smile to them. It was a sign of hope. To Bryn, it was a puzzle. He still hadn't solved. Later in the war room, he finally asked, "Lira, why are you never afraid?" She didn't answer at first. Then she walked to the edge of the room and dimmed the emergency light. She looked him straight in the eye. "Because I've seen worse," she said. "Much worse." "What do you mean?" "My mind," she said slowly, "doesn't stop when I sleep. It keeps running, simulating, testing futures. I've seen this outpost fall 100 times. I've seen my own death. I've seen your death. Again and again." Bren stepped back, and yet she continued, "I'm still standing here, and so are you." Her smile grew slightly colder now. "That means something." On the Varnak dreadnought, the commander slammed one of his claws into the control screen. "Destroying the lights was not enough," he hissed. "She outthinks our movements." A smaller alien crept forward. "Shall we attack with the full force?" The commander shook his long, horned head. "No, she's not just predicting, she's learning. Faster than we calculated." He leaned forward and hissed one word through razor-sharp teeth. "Capture." The signal came in the middle of the night, a soft crackle on the emergency band, weak, broken, fading in and out. Mayday. "Survivors trapped. Echo Ridge. Request help." The voice was human, the message repeated twice before. Going silent, Lieutenant Brynhart stood in the command tower, staring at the empty comm screen. "That ridge is 10 clicks from here. We don't have any patrols that far out." Lira Vale stood behind him, still and quiet. Her arms were crossed. Her head tilted slightly. "It's a trap," she said. "Could be a lost unit," Bren argued. "They could have fled during the last attack and gotten cut off." "It didn't," Lira said firmly. That voice was pre-recorded. Bren frowned. "How can you be sure?" "I heard it 2 years ago," she said, "during a simulation. Same voice, same message." Echo Ridge was always the bait. Despite her warning, Command couldn't ignore the possibility of survivors. A squad of 6 soldiers was assembled. 2 scouts, 1 heavy gunner, a tech specialist, Bren and Lira. They traveled light, silent, no radio chatter. Just hand signals and footsteps on cracked ground. The terrain was rocky and dry. Sharp cliffs and deep ravines surrounded them as they moved through. The night, by the time they reached Echo Ridge, the moon had vanished behind clouds. What they saw stopped them cold. A crashed human transport lay at the bottom of the canyon. Fires still smoldered on the hull. Bodies were scattered around, some in armor. Others burned. The tech specialist scanned the wreck. ID codes match EarthCorp Unit 917. But that ship disappeared 3 months ago. They were declared Mia on the planet Eurova. Lira's eyes narrowed. "So how's their ship here?" Bren's face darkened. "It's bait." Lira turned to the squad. "Fall back now." But it was too late. The ground beneath them shook. A deep rumble echoed through the canyon walls. From behind the rocks, strange shapes began to rise. Long legs, sharp claws, red glowing eyes. A full Varnak ambush force, over 100 soldiers. The team was surrounded. Gunner Martez raised his rifle and fired. 2 Varnak dropped. The others rushed forward. "Back to the canyon wall," Bren shouted. The humans sprinted toward the ridge's edge, firing as they ran. Lira stayed behind, placing 3 small devices in a triangle pattern near the crashed ship. Bren turned back. "Lira, what are you doing?" She didn't answer. She simply pressed a button on her wrist. The ground exploded. Not just rocks. Not just dirt. The entire side of the canyon wall gave way like it had been hollowed out long ago. Massive boulders collapsed, creating a roar so loud it shook the sky. Dust filled the air. When the smoke cleared, half the Varnak force was buried beneath a mountain of stone, the rest scattered, confused. That's when the second part of Lira's trap activated. From the base of the ridge, hidden floodlights exploded. To life, bright beams cut through the dust. The Varnak were blinded. At the same moment, auto turrets hidden in fake boulders began to fire fast, precise, deadly. The humans regrouped behind cover. Bren looked at her in disbelief. "You set this up before we even came here?" "No," Lira said. "I set it up last month." "What?" "I suspected Echo Ridge would be used eventually. I planted fallback defenses while out on a solo recon run, just in case." He stared at her. "You saw this coming?" "Not exactly," she said, reloading. "I just made sure we'd have options." The remaining Varnak tried to retreat, but they were trapped in the canyon's curve. One by one, they fell under heavy fire. When the final alien dropped, silence returned. The squad looked around, still. Catching their breath, the tech specialist was the first to speak. "That was brilliant." Martez shook his head. It was like she knew every move before it happened. Bren didn't speak. He just looked at Lira. Her face was calm, her eyes steady, and she was smiling again. They returned to the outpost before sunrise. Every soldier who passed them stopped to look, not at Bren, not at the gunner, but at Lira Vale. Word had spread about Echo Ridge, the ambush, the trap. Everyone knew she'd save them again. But now, they didn't whisper that she was strange. They whispered that she was their only hope. Later, Bren sat in the command room, looking out over the dark horizon. Lira stood nearby, checking coordinates. And patrol shifts. "You said you didn't know this would happen exactly," he said. "But you still set traps a month ago." "Why?" She looked at him. "I see patterns. The way the enemy moves, how they think. I run those patterns through my mind over and over. Eventually I find the path that leads to survival." "The others?" he asked. "From Project Revenant?" "Dead," she said softly. "They couldn't take the mental pressure, or the memories." "What memories?" "The ones that haven't happened yet." Up above, in the orbiting Varnak dreadnought, the silver-eyed commander stood before a hologram of the canyon battle. He watched the trap, the collapse, the floodlights, the slaughter. His eyes narrowed. "She is not acting alone," he said coldly. "She is guided by something we don't understand." An officer approached. "Shall we destroy the outpost?" "No," the commander hissed. "Not yet." He touched the red interface screen. "New plan. Psychological strike initiated target. Lira Vale. Mind break sequence ready." The outpost had a strange silence that morning. No attacks. No movement. No sensor pings. The skies were clear. The ground was still. The soldiers didn't relax. They'd learned better. Everyone waited for the next wave. It never came. But something else did. A message that arrived through the emergency comm channel. Not broken, not fake. Crystal clear and spoken in perfect human English. "This is Commander Tahr'Zul of the Varnak Ascendancy. I come under a flag of silence. No weapons, no lies. I request a meeting with Captain Lira Vale." The command deck went silent. One soldier dropped his ration bar. Bren looked at the screen. "He knows your name." Lira stared at the speaker and smiled. Bren, Lira, and 2 guards met the alien envoy outside the walls. Drones hovered above, ready to fire if needed. The soldiers kept rifles trained on the dark, cracked earth. Then they saw him. Commander Tahr'Zul stood over 9 feet tall. Silver skin, black armor that moved like liquid, a long, jointed staff in one hand, red eyes that didn't blink. But he came alone. He walked to within 20 meters and stopped. "I honor your rules of parley," he said in a deep, cold voice. "I seek only to talk. Nothing more." Bren stepped forward, then talk. Looked past him, at her, at Lira. "I speak only to the one who has seen the paths." Her smile didn't move. She stepped forward. They stood face to face, human and aliens, separated by a few meters of dusty ground and decades of hatred. "You know me?" Lira said calmly. "Yes," Tahr'Zul answered. "But more than that, I remember you." Bren's head jerked up. "What are you talking about?" I met her once, the alien said, long before this war began. Not in person, but in the void between thought. A field of probabilities, dreams, visions. He tilted his head. Her mind touches that same space where our kind are born. That is why she understands us. I understand your tactics, Lira said flatly. Not your thoughts. No, Tahr'Zul whispered. You understand both. He took a step forward. The implant inside you is not just human. It was built using stolen technology. Varnak, neural fiber, my people's essence. That is why you can see what we see. Feel what we feel. That is why you smile. He leaned closer, like us. The soldiers raised their guns. Lira raised a hand. Stand down. She looked him in the eye. You came to break me. Tahr'Zul didn't deny it. You are the only thing stopping our swarm. You do not lead through orders. You lead through belief. If I can shatter that, your army falls. He touched a device on his chest. Suddenly Lira gasped. Her legs buckled. Her head dropped. Bren rushed forward, but she held up her hand again. She was breathing hard, but she was still smiling. Inside her mind, something had changed. Tahr'Zul's signal had connected with her implant. A psychic strike. He wasn't attacking with weapons. He was attacking her memories, old fears, dead faces, the screams of the other revenant subjects, test chambers, fire, blood pain. All of it crashed back into her brain in a wave of heat, but she didn't fall. Instead, she stood taller, because she had seen this too once in a broken dream. Months ago, and she had prepared. You think fear will stop me? She said through gritted teeth. I think pain reveals the truth, Tahr'Zul said. Then let me show you mine. Her implant surged. Tahr'Zul flinched. He saw it flashes of her future. Memory chains, battles, traps, defeats, deaths, over and over. Each simulation more brutal than the last, and in every one. She smiled through the end, because she had already lived it. The alien commander staggered back, hand on his head. His red eyes dimmed for a second. Then he growled. You are cursed. No, she said. I'm free. She stepped forward. And now you know why you'll lose. Tahr'Zul turned and walked away slowly but without a word. His silence said everything. Back at the outpost, the soldiers watched Lira return. She looked tired, pale, but her eyes were sharp. Bren followed close behind. What did he do to you? Nothing I wasn't ready for, she said. But he'll come harder now. Yes, she said. His pride is broken. She looked at the map. And he'll throw everything he has left at us.
Ow.
Bren stared at her. Do we have a plan? Lira tapped a button. A hidden section of the map opened. A network of cables. Tunnels and explosives filled the screen. Her smile returned. Yes, she said. I call it the end path. Far above, on the dreadnought. Tahr'Zul gripped the railing of his command deck. Blood dripped from his nose. Begin the final strike, he hissed. All ships, all troops, no retreat. His officers looked at him, sir. She is not human, he said. She is something worse. The sky above Elarusix turned black. Not from nightfall, but from ships. Hundreds of them. Swarm of Varnak warships poured through the clouds like a sea of shadows. Their engines screamed. Cannons burned red. Drop pods rained down like fire. The ground trembled. The air sizzled. Every sensor in the outpost exploded with red warnings. Inside the command center, alarms screamed across every screen. They're bringing everything. A tech officer shouted. All 500 ships' ground units, walkers, flyers, everything they have. Lieutenant Brenhart looked to Lira Vale. She stood silently, her eyes locked on the map. Her face showed no panic, no fear. She was smiling. Outside, the walls, the first wave hit. Massive four-legged walkers stomped across the desert, shaking the ground. Varnak flyers zipped overhead, dropping plasma bombs. Ground swarms charged with bladed arms and spiked armor. Turrets fired. Soldiers screamed. Explosions tore open the walls. The outpost began to fall, but Lira didn't move. She activated her implant. The world slowed down in her mind. Movements, numbers, patterns the enemy would attack. Every place they would strike. She saw it all. "Bren," she said, "activate the echo relays." He blinked. "Those were prototypes only tested once. They'll work," she said. He trusted her. He always had. Across the outpost, towers lit up with strange blue light, the echo relays. They sent out low-frequency pulses through the ground timed to the rhythm of Varnak movement. The creatures, sensitive to vibration, suddenly panicked. Walkers stumbled. Ground troops froze. Flyers lost control and crashed into each other. Half the first wave collapsed in confusion. The humans pushed back hard. Lira moved through the battlefield. Like a shadow, she gave orders over comms. "Squad 3, fall back. Tunnel 5 is now active. Use the jump mines at Grid Delta. Gunner teams fire low. Break their footing, not their armor." She was calm, precise, always one step ahead. One soldier said what everyone was thinking. "She's not fighting like us. She's fighting like she already won." But the swarm didn't stop. More drop pods, more tanks, more beasts. They kept coming. 50, 100, 200. The humans were outnumbered, 500 to 1, and still. She smiled. Inside the armory, Lira unlocked a door no one had ever noticed. Behind it, a single black pod, unmarked, untouched, emergency use only. She whispered. Bren found her there, his face pale and soaked in sweat. "They're breaking through the west gate." "I know," she said. "That's where I'll be." She stepped into the pod and activated it. Her body locked in. Wires slid into the base of her skull. Her implant flared. Data surged. Maps, troop movements, energy grids, even enemy vitals. As everything poured into her mind, she became the battlefield in the West Trench. A group of tired soldiers braced for the end. Plasma fire rained down. Varnak blades closed in. Their rifles overheated. Their grenades were gone. Then she arrived. Lira stepped out of the smoke like something from a myth. Her armor glowed faint blue. Sparks danced off her fingers. Her rifle hummed with strange energy. Her eyes bright, cold, calm, and that smile, that same smile. The first Varnak charged her. She sidestepped, spun low, and fired a pulse into its spine. It dropped instantly. 3 more rushed in. She didn't. She advanced. Bren watched it all from the tower cam. 1 human against an entire swarm. And somehow, she wasn't losing. She didn't need cover. She didn't need backup. Landed. Every step was perfect. She dodged before they fired. She killed before they reached her. 5, 10, 20. She fought like a ghost, or a god, back in the dreadnought. Commander Tahr'Zul watched through his interface. His hands trembled. "She sees everything," he hissed. "Every path, every flaw." An officer behind him spoke carefully. "Then we overwhelm her." "No," he said. "We can't." He slammed his claw against the command table. "She isn't just human anymore. She's the convergence." Room fell silent. Lira reached the base of the central hill. She looked up at the last wave. Hundreds of creatures still, waiting to descend. She didn't run. She planted her boots and raised a small trigger. All around the battlefield, buried charges, activated thermal mines, shrapnel bombs, sonic disruptors, all synced to the same heartbeat, hers. She pressed the button. The hill exploded. Not just fire, but light. Pure white light. Swallowed the enemy. It didn't just destroy. It disoriented. Varnak tech shut down. IO-links collapsed. Command signals vanished. The swarm broke. Apart. Leaderless. Sightless. The remaining human soldiers charged forward. They didn't see Lira fall to one knee, They didn't see her blood, but she saw them win. And she smiled in the aftermath. Silence returned. Smoke curled across the ruined ground. Wounded were pulled from rubble. Bren found her lying near the crater. Her armor was cracked. Her breathing slow, but she was alive. He crouched beside her. "You did it." Her lips moved. "Not yet," she whispered. "Why not?" She looked up at the black sky. "The commander is still out there, high above Elarusix, on the crippled dreadnought." Tahr'Zul stood alone, bleeding, afraid, and for the first time in his life, uncertain, he turned to the dark void of space. "If I fall," he growled, "then I fall by her hand." Smoke still rose over the shattered land of ELRA-6. The battlefield was quiet now. Burned-out drop pods lay scattered across the sand. The air smelled of fire, metal, and blood. Here and there, soldiers worked to carry the wounded. Still looking to the sky, waiting for something more. Because they knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Up in orbit, one last Varnak ship still floated above the planet. Wounded, burning, but alive. Inside, Commander Tahr'Zul gripped the edge of the control panel with trembling hands. His eyes glowed weakly. Blood ran down his face. Around him, dead crew members littered the floor. He had failed. 500 ships gone. Tens of thousands of warriors defeated by one woman and her mysterious smile back on the surface. Lira Vale stood at the edge of the canyon, her armor still. Cracked from the last blast, her eyes were tired, her shoulders slumped. The neural link in her neck sparked softly, but her mind was sharp and the pattern was clear. He hadn't left. She turned to Bren. "The commander is still up there. Alone, but alive." Bren looked up at the black sky. "He'll never surrender." "No," she said, "but he'll come, because he has nothing left."
How do you know?
Lira looked down at her shaking hand. "Because if I were him, I'd come down to end it myself." She was right. Less than an hour later, the warning alarm buzzed once in the tower. A single Varnak pod was entering the atmosphere. One. Not a fleet, not a ship. Just one final challenger, Commander. Tahr'Zul had returned. For her, the pod crashed into the ground just outside the main gate. Smoke curled from its broken frame. The hatch hissed open. The silver-skinned alien climbed out, covered in blood and cracks. One eye blinded, but he still stood tall. Waiting, Lira stepped forward alone. She passed soldiers who tried to stop her. "No backup," she said. "He came alone. So will I." She walked across the open ground, dust rising behind her, and for the last time, she met him face to face. "You destroyed my empire," Tahr'Zul growled. "You tried to erase my species," Lira replied. He tilted his head. "You were not made to win. You were made to suffer." "I did suffer," she said. "That's why I'm stronger than you." He raised his weapon. She didn't. He hesitated. "Why don't you fight?" "I already have," she said calmly. "Every battle, every loss, I've lived them, again and again. You've only fought this war once. I've fought it 1,000 times." She stepped forward. "And I've won it." Tahr'Zul screamed and charged, but he was slower now, weaker, wounded. She dodged easily. She didn't fire her weapon. She didn't need to, because the real battle wasn't outside. It was in the mind. And hers had already beaten his. They fought across the canyon ridge. Under the eyes of both armies, steel clashed. Fire burst, rocks cracked, and then Lira struck her. Blades slid through the commander's armor and into his core. He collapsed, clawing at the dirt, his voice gurgling. "You are not human." She knelt beside him, her voice low. "No, I'm more." He stared up at her, and for the first time, smiled. Then his body turned to dust. The war was over. The Varnak swarm collapsed. Whatever connection had held their minds, together, was gone. Without a leader, they retreated across the galaxy, broken and silent. Elara 6 was saved, and humanity had won days past. The outpost became quiet again. Repairs were slow, but steady. Survivors were treated. Debris was cleared, and people began to ask the question, who was Lira Vale really? They had seen her fight, seen her lead, seen her smile, but no one truly understood the mind behind that calm face. Bren visited her at the edge of the desert, where she sat quietly in the wind, staring at the stars. "You saved all of us," he said. She nodded. "You could lead Earth's armies, command fleets, change everything." She shook her head. "Not meant for power, just patterns." "But you're more than that," he said. She turned to him. "You're right, I am more." She stood up slowly, but not for long. "Do you mean," she looked up at the sky, "the implant is dying? Pushed it too far. My mind can't hold it anymore." Bren froze. "You knew?" "I saw it," she said. "In the last simulation, my victory was always tied to my ending." He stepped closer. "There has to be a way." She smiled. That same mysterious smile. "The future always needs heroes, even if they vanish afterward." She placed something in his hand, a small black crystal, the last memory thread. "Don't use it. Not yet. But one day someone might need it." Then she walked toward the horizon. No one followed. No one stopped her. And just like that, Lira Vale was gone. Some say she walked into the stars. Others believe she shut down the implant and became human again. No one really knows. But everyone remembers her smile, the one that never changed, the one that said, "I've already seen how this ends."